Dante Alighieri, politician, the author of the Divine Comedy, a severe critique of Florence. Whoever visits the city will hear mentioning Dante at least once. Dante was first of all the citizen of the city, one of the priors, an active politician, and as such, he actually was exiled from the town in 1302. Today, you can find the footsteps of Dante spread across the center. Let us follow his steps to discover his life and work in Florence. Dante was born in Florence in 1265 as a part of the Alighieri family, a family linked with the ties of loyalty to the Guelph party. Family of nobility, but not one of those super famous ones, and this is why we have very little documents concerning Dante's youth and education. We know that he studied poetry in Florence and possibly also in Bologna. We find Dante in 1289 fighting together with the Guelphs in the Battle of Campaldino against the political enemies of the Ghibelines. He then becomes a politician, actively involved in the rule of the city, participating also in 1301 in an embassy to the Pope Boniface VIII, trying to find a political agreement between the Guelph party ruling Florence and the Pope himself. He is a prior at least twice, and when the opponents of the White Guelph party he belonged to, the Black Guelphs, take the government in town, they actually decided to exile Dante, declaring him as an enemy of the state. Dante's life on exile was not easy. He moved from Forlì to Verona, then Ravenna. On exile, he was able to finish his major work, the Divine Comedy, and he worked also as diplomat for various Italian rulers. He is buried in Ravenna. His remains were never moved to Florence, but in the city we can find many other spots where to follow Dante's footsteps. In the trying years of the 19th century, when Italy was born as a state, Italian intellectuals faced a very tedious question. Which of the Italian dialects will become the language for all of the people? Italy was divided into various states, and all the different populations speak a different dialect. There was a need of one common language. Because of Dante's Divine Comedy, because of his treatise about the superiority of vernacular upon Latin, and then the reuse of Florentine vernacular also in Petrarch's poetry and in Boccaccio's Decameron, Florentine 19th century dialect became the base for the modern Italian. Whoever speaks Italian today speaks Florentine from the 19th century. And Dante assumed a new symbolical role. He became the father of Italian language. The promotion of his figure meant the promotion of the idea of the unification. And this is why in the 19th century, many locations related to Dante's presence in town were restored and brought to the public attention. New Dante's itinerary was designed in town to emphasize the birth of the national language and of the state of Italy. In the decades leading to the Italian unification, the Basilica of Santa Croce acquired a new symbolical function because of the presence inside of this church of the tomb of Michelangelo, the tomb of Ghiberti, Galileo and Machiavelli. It became a symbolical burial spot of the major Italians, of the figures that contributed to the birth of Italian culture. This is why, with the birth of Italian language and the celebrations surrounding the figure of Dante, the city of Florence tried to host inside Santa Croce also Dante's tomb. But Ravenna has never agreed on the translation of Dante's remains from their city to Florence. This is why only a cenotaph, a monument in memory of Dante, was created inside of Santa Croce. The cenotaph was inaugurated in 1830 and it was designed by Stefano Ricci in neoclassical style. Dante sits at the very top in a very pensive pose. He's flanked by two female figures, Italy, who shows towards him as she was showing her father, and poetry that cries the loss of the greatest poet holding a roller crown. This monument, it's a part of a larger strategy of the celebrations of Dante that was put in action during the 19th century. The statue of Dante in front of Santa Croce Basilica was inaugurated on May 14, 1865. It was inaugurated with the presence of Italian King Victor Emmanuel II in a double celebration of the 600 years from the birth of the poet, and also celebrating the Florence as the capital of United States of Italy. The first location of this statue was in the center of the square, but it was moved here to the side of Santa Croce Basilica after the dramatic flood of 1966, which damaged the work. Dante is shown standing with his very severe glance, looking down at Florence, holding the comedy in his hand. And from here, still today, he looks at us with his criticizing eye. In 1255, Florence had two main magistracies, the Podestà, with the executive powers, and Capitano del Popolo, similar to a chief police officer. Both offices were held by the people from outside of the city, which was supposed to grant their neutrality. But they didn't have their palace, and they were hosted by turn by the different Florentine families, which obviously put their neutrality in doubt. And this is why the city decided to actually build the first palace of power here, and Bargello was created in 1255. The name, in fact, comes from Bargello, the name of the first police officer, and the building itself was a sort of a court, a building of power, and a prison for special prisoners. This is why a chapel of Mary Magdalene, the first of the penitents of the Christian religiosity, was decorated. The building was created as a building of power, a court, and a prison for special prisoners. And it seems that actually capital penalties were actually executed here at the central courtyard. This is why a chapel dedicated to Mary Magdalene was decorated inside, Mary Magdalene being the most important penitent saint in the Christian religion. The frescoes inside of the chapel were executed between 1333 and 1337 and are attributed by some art historians to Giotto and his school. And they represent the paradise and the hell, and they contain what we consider the first portrait of Dante, who awaits the entrance to the paradise together with the blessed ones. Curiously enough, also the vision of the hell seems to be already influenced by how Dante presented the hell in his Divine Comedy. Badia Fiorentina is the name of the church of Santa Maria, founded in the 10th century by Villa, the mother of Marquis of Tuscany, as a Benedictine monastery. This kind of weird and exceptional decision to establish a female Benedictine monastery within the city walls of Florence is read by the historians as an attempt of the imperial powers to move the center of Tuscany from Lucca towards emerging Florence. In fact, here, the Marquis of Tuscany, Ugo, was buried after his death in 1001. For the Florentines of the past, the presence of Ugo's tomb here in the Badia Fiorentina marked the beginning of this re-established importance of Florence. And in fact, the mass in suffrage of the memory of Ugo is celebrated here at the Badia until today. Dante himself mentions Ugo in the Divine Comedy, marking the bellissima insignia, the beautiful coat of arms of the Marquis, and mentions the many noble families who received their titles from Ugo, which marked the beginning of the importance of the city of Florence. In this very church, Giovanni Boccaccio, the author of the Cameron, held the very first public readings of Dante's Divine Comedy, and therefore this place is actually penetrated with the presence of Dante, also because the artist and the poet lived basically next door. We don't have the direct documents proving exactly where Dante's house might be. From some juridical sources, we know that he was a neighbor of the Church of San Martino. But the Church of San Martino changed orientation during the centuries, and therefore we assume that his house might have been somewhere there in today's via Dante Alighieri. Dante basically knew very well every single stone in this very neighborhood and knew very well this very curious tower that stands just in front of the Oratory of San Martino. The Chestnut Tower existed here already during the Dante's time. It's a very unusual tower among the various Florentine towers because it's not a private one. It did not belong to a family, but belonged to the monastery of the Badia Fiorentina and is as old as it possibly dates back to 1038, being the defensive tower of the monastery, donated to the convent by the Emperor Conrad III. From 1282, the monastery lent this tower to the city of Florence, allowing the assemblies of the priors inside of this building, offering them protection. The priors could finally rule the city in a safe place, far from the violence of the different factions that wanted to influence their government. The voting method used during these assemblies is actually the source of the name of this tower, the Chestnut Tower. In fact, they were using chestnuts to express their preference. The boiled, peeled chestnut was a vote for no, and the brown, dark chestnut was a vote for yes. During the years of Florence, capital of United Italy, it was decided that the municipality will buy and restore the sites where possibly the houses of Alighieri's families used to be located during the Middle Ages. This is when this little square was created. The works took them a bit. The project was concluded only in 1911, but this is when the Dante's House Museum was inaugurated. This tower never housed the actual Dante's house, and today it's a museum where I always invite families with kids. It talks about Dante's Florence, about the government, about the conflict between the Ghibellines and the Guelphs. It has an interactive exhibition that is quite interesting for the younger visitors to the city. In the heart of Dante's neighborhood, just few steps from today's Dante's House Museum, there is a medieval church of Santa Margherita dei Cerchi. Dating back to the Middle Ages, church always remained under the patronage of the powerful Cerchi family that was leading the political faction to which Dante also belonged. But here another powerful family was a big player in this neighborhood, and this was the family of the Portinaris. Their palace was just next door, and the head of the family was Folco Portinari, the founder of the first public hospital still running in Florence, Santa Maria Nuova. He was the father of Beatrice Portinari, who becomes Dante's muse. The two met, probably as children, at a feast, Calende di Maggio. They had to be young enough not to be divided because of the gender difference between the two, but it seems that Dante really fell in love with Beatrice and made of her a big ideal that he will glorify in his poetry. And she will become his guide through paradise and purgatory in the Divine Comedy. The proof that the two had to really be united with this personal relation is also proved by the fact that Dante named his first daughter Beatrice. Imagine the joy of his wife. Beatrice also married into the Bardi family and moved out from this neighborhood. Again, the 19th century narrative glorifying Dante's presence in Florence wanted Dante and Beatrice meeting inside of the church. This is absolutely not true. And another part of the legend is that Beatrice was actually buried in here, which also is false because as a Bardi, she is much more possibly buried in the Bardi chapel decorated by Giotto's frescoes inside of Santa Croce Basilica. However, these narratives are very, very popular among tourists who look here for the birth, the origin of the ideal love between Dante and Beatrice, and so they leave here lockers on the outside of the church and leave love letters inside on the fake tomb of Beatrice. Do you want to learn more about Dante and discover his footsteps in Florence? Contact us for a custom itinerary. Il bel San Giovanni. For Dante, the baptistry was the metaphor of Florence itself, of its civic and its religious power. Here, the poet had also a chance to become a hero for a day because, according to his own account, he was supposed to save a kid that was at risk of drowning inside of one of the pools of the baptismal font. Dante had to be also strongly influenced by the vision of the hell that was pictured in the mosaics that he saw growing on the ceiling of the baptistry. There, in fact, there is the figure of Satan that eats the souls of the condemned. Dante was possibly also strongly influenced by the vision of the hell that was pictured in the mosaics. The mosaics were started in 1230, and so he had to see them growing during his life here in Florence. And the vision of Satan eating the souls of the condemned had to influence his imaginary for what he described in his Divine Comedy. Dante wanted to return from Florence, from exile, wanted to be crowned inside of the baptistry with the roller crown of poets. That unfortunately never happened, but this place had a very strong symbolical meaning for the poet. If Dante had a strong ties with the Franciscans at Santa Croce, studying possibly in the library, here at the Dominican Santa Maria Novella, you can actually see depicted his vision of the Inferno. Inside of the basilica, on the side of the transept, raised above the level of the church itself, is located the chapel of Strozzi of Mantua, which was decorated during the 1350s by Nardo di Cione, who depicted the Last Judgment, the paradise, but more importantly, the hell, the Inferno, picturing for the first time, illustrating the exact vision described by Dante in his Divine Comedy. It's actually interesting to find this imaginary here painted in the mid-14th century because it marks the beginning of Dante's popularity in the city. Consider that after his exile, for a long time he was considered a public enemy, and so his books were not that popular. But the fact that Divine Comedy becomes a bestseller of the Middle Ages actually invites the Florentine people to the consideration of the importance of Dante's work. And so in the chapel, you can see all the different sections of the hell with Charon transferring the souls to the hell, with the heretics burning in the open sarcophagi. You can see Ulysses, you can see Satan, who eats and tortures the traitors, Brutus, Cassius, and Judah. This is actually one of the earliest depictions of Dante's Divine Comedy in the arts.